Good morning. It's Erev Rosh Hashanah for me, and the entire month we've been asked to look at ourselves and reflect. Reflect on what's happening. And when I reflect, yes, I reflect on my personal life, the life of those around me whom I love, and the country that I hold dear. And when I was thinking, I came up with so much information. Not the culture wars. Yeah, they affect us. They divert our attention from what's important. Seems to me, way back in the 20th century, in the 1970s, that was a time to remember. It was a pivot for so much in our world today. George Bernard Shaw would say, when you look at your world and you see it as it is, ask why. And then when you look into the future, ask why not. Well, I'm going to ask and answer both questions today. 1977 was the press memorandum which foretold the heat and climate changes that we'd see today. Did anyone listen? No. Was there a reason they didn't listen? You bet. The reason was the fossil fuel industry had a stranglehold on our government, and it still does. Luckily, however, kids all over the world are now bringing fossil fuel companies to court. Happened in Montana, happened in Hawaii, and now the kids are bringing 23 EU countries to court based on the impure air and water that they're left with. Because none of us knows how much toxicity is in our veins and how much of that toxicity is causing diabetes, heart disease, asthma, and eventually death. But I digress, because I came upon a far more important memorandum. A memorandum that prevents us from moving forward. It's called the Powell Doctrine by Lewis Powell in 1971. I think I've talked about it several times. I even gave a course on live YouTube on the Powell Doctrine. And lo and behold, according to the recent investigative reporting at The Guardian and at ProPublica, that Powell memorandum has more import than any of us knew. In 1971, Lewis Powell decided that corporations didn't have enough power. He looked at the elite colleges, he looked at the newspapers, he looked at the Chamber of Commerce, he looked at education, and he said, corporations aren't getting their due at all. We're out for people. We're out for people, for entrepreneurs, for small businesses. That's got to stop. The only thing that's important to the country is the corporate welfare. And that corporate welfare must be maintained at all costs. And he linked it to democracy, though we know the blending of corporations with our democratic institutions doesn't leave us a democracy at all. No, it leaves us a very powerful corporation. So Lewis Powell becomes a Supreme Court justice under Richard Nixon. And he says, well, we should get many more Supreme Court justices. We've got a ready place for them out of Jones Day, the attorney law firm. And Scalia gets to the court. And in 1991, a fateful decision is made. Clarence Thomas makes it to the Supreme Court. He shouldn't have been there for many reasons, because I'm convinced he really did assault Anita Hill, and who knows how many others. And he used the race card against Congress, made them scared not to put him in power. And he got into power. What none of us knew at the time is in 1987, he married his second wife, Ginny Thomas. And Ginny Thomas was a very, very social climbing human being. She liked the top, and she liked conservatives at the top. And so she courted Harlan Crow and Leonard Leo, who we've only just heard of. And they had a lot of power. 1991, Clarence Thomas is made a Supreme Court justice under George W. Bush. 2010, he's very quiet, doesn't say a word, doesn't talk about his trips with these people, doesn't talk about what his wife is colluding with them, but they wanted Citizens United to pass. And they worked on the Thomases. No question about it. They're best buds. And it worked to their advantage. Corporations then had power. They had a say. They were people. You had to look upon them as people. Of course, if you pricked a corporation, I don't think it bled. But now they were people. And now the price of getting into politics skyrocketed. $5-6 billion just to become a president. Imagine how many people you got to know, and imagine how many favors are expected back for that $5 billion investment. Corporations got their way. Little by little, they changed the way we have the media. Small-town newspapers went out of business. Covering the federal government, that went out of business too. Every single cabinet member was covered in the old days. The Congressional Record was covered. How money was dispensed in all of the states, that was covered through local news. No more. Those liberal colleges, they taught business. Business was the name of the game. The Chamber of Commerce stepped up. And all of a sudden, after 2010, not only did we get the seamless intertwining of business and government, we also got the gerrymandering and the voter suppression that went along with it. And why? All so a conservative majority could get into power, and get into power legally. Not a shot was fired. And yet, you've got one-party rule. And our Supreme Court justice were good Catholics and wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade. Well, that worked to their benefit too. Because conservatives, by their very nature, don't like change. They want things to be the way they were. Women in the kitchen, men working, end discussion. But they don't look at the here and now, where people working 2-3 jobs, and they can't even afford the rents. But the conservative takeover happened, and it continues. Ted Cruz came up with another little goodie for those running for election who are sanctioned by the parties. From now on, if you have to pay any money out of your pocket and you lend money to yourself, well, you can be reimbursed by those who fund you. So you never have to lay out a penny to run for Congress, because your benefactors will pay you the money. They want you to have that money. This way, you'll vote against LGBTQ and A status in America. The Supreme Court certainly will go with it. Most of them don't like it anyway, so it's a no-brainer for them. I guess if they can vote against Jews and other minorities, they would, but you can't outright vote against hating Jewish groups. You can be anti-Semitic, you can kill a couple of us, but you can't outright go against it at this point in time. Though Justice Kennedy did have it on his lease that in perpetuity he could not sell his land to any Jew or black person. He couldn't take them into his private country club either. Justice Kennedy was not so clean. One of the reasons he left, most likely, is because his son was the chief investment officer at Deutsche Bank for Donald Trump. So I imagine when the Donald asked him to leave, he just left. And then we got 3 other conservative justices equally interested in the rights of big business. Sure, we're going after Google and Amazon, but what about the other 75 to 90 corporations in the Standard & Poor's? They're all there as monopolies. And monopolies, as we know, are not good for Americans. We need affordable housing. We need entrepreneurs. We need those small businesses and good ideas. We'll never move ahead without it, because this comfortable billionaire class, they don't walk on the ground like you and me. No, they get out of their house, they go into their car, they go into their helicopter, and they fly wherever the hell they want to go. You and I, either we're taking the buses, we're taking the subways, or we're walking. And it's really hot out there this summer. Today, thank God, it's a beautiful day. But don't lose sight of the fact that the conservative takeover of America was planned and purposeful and ongoing. They're not playing to lose. They play to win. And our democracy is indeed rigged. And the Harlan Crows and the Leonard Leos of this world run our government. They dictate what laws are passed. Not for your benefit, not for my benefit, but it can be if we overturn them and realize that they're a threat to everyone who is not making $1 billion. They're a threat to our way of life. They don't believe in live and let live, because we're really not important. If we get education, they don't really care. In fact, they prefer that we don't. They really don't care who comes into the country either. They talk a big game about migrants, but they're the first to hire illegal aliens. They're the first people to make sure that The folks that they hire either make no wages or make minimal wages, and then our American citizens have to compete against that. Not right what's happened. It's been a slow progression, but it's been planned and executed. And now here we are, approaching 2024. Well, if I were in your shoes, I certainly wouldn't vote for a Republican. Mitt Romney has the right idea. He's getting out. He can't take it anymore. None of these people who took part in the insurrection should be there anyway. They should be out, according to the 14th Amendment, Section 3. When everyone says it's a two-party system, it really isn't. It's a one-party system where the conservative movement wants to become entrenched. And then corporations continue unaccountable to do whatever they want. Unfortunately, at this point, it really isn't in our best interests at all. Because what we're facing, if not financial ruin, we're facing lack of food, lack of water, more migrants, and eventually death, because we can't afford the world to continue the way it is. And we can't afford America to continue on this path either. This is the real pivot point. 2024, it's right around the corner. But we got to get rid of every one of those people who follow Clarence Thomas, Leonard Leo, Harlan Crow, and the corporate mantra. The economy doesn't justify democracy. Democracy is one person, one vote, and equal rights for all. When I see that, I'll be able to smile again, be happy, because I'll know our future is secure. So, thank you for listening, and have a lovely day. Bye now.